It sounded like a great idea, a young, fresh couple modernizing the monarchy as hybrid royals. But the Queen stopped Meghan and Harry's plans with the greatest skill in negotiation that you'll learn right now. Welcome back, my body language buddies. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy, and it will be great if you join us by just liking this video, subscribing, and hitting that bell. Let's get down to it. Just 2 weeks before the infamous Oprah interview, it was reported that Harry and Meghan were finally stripped of their royal patronage, as they will be no longer working royals. It is reported that their original idea was to be some kind of hybrid royals, in the sense of retaining some of their royal duties and, of course, some of the benefits that go with it. At the same time, they would be able to pursue their own money projects. It's like having the best of both worlds, right? But the Queen's answer was not a chance, or some variation of that sentence. It was not so much that she thought that it was a bad idea, but instead, she was not going to allow it. It's that simple. Now, this is a perfect example of how some ideas look like they can work on paper or in theory, and in some cases you can even persuade people to support you. And at least until that point, the Queen had Harry in high regard, so maybe there would have been a possibility for their plan to get through. After all, if you present a reasonable plan, there's no reason why it should be rejected. And this is where we get to the first stage of this decision, and why it's important for you to understand the rationale behind the Queen's negative, and how it could be very useful for you when dealing with toxic personalities. Any toxic personality is going to try to manipulate you into accepting a deal that has the most benefits for them, and sometimes even harming your own position. They are looking for their own gain and they don't care about anything else. But at the same time, they are going to play into your fears. That's why their plan always includes getting to know you first, so they can establish a strategy on how to pull your heartstrings. I'm sure the Queen has thought a lot of over the past couple decades a way of modernizing the British monarchy's image. After all, that impressive brand management is one of the sources of so much tourism to the UK. But as any organization, their members grow old and there's always the need to introduce fresh faces so you can connect better with new generations. And besides, William and Catherine, you tell me if the perspective of Harry and Meghan on those first years didn't look like a great way to connect with new generations too. Yeah, there were a couple red flags, but at that point, that reunion of the Fab Four for the Royal Foundation, this really looked like this could work. But we, as humans, have a big flaw. And that flaw is called shiny object syndrome, and it can really derail us like this. To understand how this affects you, it's important to realize that we are still nomads at heart. If you count just Homo sapiens, that's roughly 200,000 years, of which only 10,000 has been the current agriculture age. We were designed to be constantly adapting to new places, new landscapes, new challenges, and for the longest time, that was our way of life. So just by natural selection, we learned to love new experiences. Staying in one place for too long meant that sooner or later the resources would dry. And the longer we stayed in one place, the harder it will be to get going again. And that will be bad for survival. That's why today we feel restless when we have to do the same again and again. Maybe it's the same job with no future, or the same city, or the same circle of friends. We will always be craving some sort of variety. And that is good in one sense because it pushes us to explore new experiences. But that's bad when you realize that to get better at anything, you have to put on the reps again and again. That's a problem with shiny object syndrome. That is when you start something and then a couple months later you leave that for another thing. It can happen with sports, it can happen with businesses, or playing musical instruments, or even with relationships. That natural restlessness explains why it's so likely that at middle age, both men and women could explode in that crisis because they think, hey, I've been at this for so long that I need a radical change. And in the worst case scenario, you get a Ricky Martin tattoo on your back. So fresh blood in the monarchy was something that was craved and needed, and the Queen knew it. What's more, hybrid royals would be a really romantic term. You're not only bringing a fresh face to the royal family, but also a new approach to the royal duties. Now, you might think that the Queen said no because she's extremely conservative, doesn't have a vision or any other similar option, but I don't agree. Because in fact, she acted just like one of the greatest hostage negotiators in the world, Chris Voss. Chris is famous for his book Never Split the Difference, and to sum it up in a single sentence, its main idea is that you should never settle for the middle ground on any kind of negotiation. You know how nowadays everyone is so easily offended, everything should be win-win, everyone should get a participation medal, everyone should be happy, but real life has never worked that way. The Queen realized that she could not split the difference, that there could be no middle ground to royal duties. You either remain in or you're out. And the simplest reason is conflict of interest. Let's say Harry and Meghan travel to Africa as royals, and at the same time they bring cameras to record their duties there for a Netflix documentary. The exact moment that your royal duties become part of a monetary gain, everything goes south. Because your intentions will be questioned. Are you doing this for the sake of doing good, or are you doing this just to get footage for monetary gain? And that conflict of interest will be a torpedo to the royal family's reputation. It's like those TikToks when you see someone helping the homeless and at the same time that video is monetized. So the question is, are you doing that because you actually want to help people or because you're looking fame and fortune? That gets really ugly really quickly, and it will only lead to a public relations scandal. We already know that that's something that Meghan does quite well. Most probably the hybrid royals proposition was Meghan's idea. Use the royal family's resources and at the same time get exposure for your own private endeavors. I think the pitch did not get through because we already know that Harry was not keen on keeping his royal duties at all. And at the same time, you can imagine Harry trying to pitch the idea to his grandmother and Meghan on the window holding oversized flashcards to help him. That would be a nice The Crown episode. All this is not that far-fetched because we already saw Harry and Meghan at New York City trying to blend both activism and at the same time boosting their brand and their exposure with their Netflix and Spotify contracts in mind. That's why they get so much flack, and I already recommended, totally free, on the house, that they should compartmentalize both activities. For the life of me, I really can't get over how it escapes their understanding that not having absolute clean, full disclosure about their motives would only hurt their brand image. That's why the Queen knew that it was not a good idea, and what's more, it was not the best of intentions. If you get anything from this episode, it's three things. First, it's always best when your motives are crystal clear because it's extremely easy to spark a conflict of interest. 2, now you know that restlessness is something natural for human beings and you should make the best out of it. And 3, negotiation is not always win-win. In fact, most of the times that's the worst possible outcome. I'll be exploring this deeper in another episode. If you want to support my channel and help me make more videos, all you have to do is tell a friend. That helps me reach more people and bring you the best of the British royals and human behavior. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas and I'll see you soon, my Battle Language buddies.